The most dangerous mistake isn't underestimating someone's strength. It's assuming you already know their story. The morning air carried the comforting aroma of fresh coffee as people drifted in and out of Maple Grove Cafe, a quiet corner tucked between office buildings and a small city park. It was the kind of place where regulars greeted one another with familiar smiles and waitresses remembered exactly how each customer liked their breakfast. No one expected that ordinary morning to become the one people would remember for years. A woman stepped through the front door wearing a simple dark jacket, blue jeans, and worn walking shoes. She carried a faded canvas bag over one shoulder, her posture calm, her expression unreadable. Her hair was neatly tied back, revealing a face marked more by quiet confidence than by age. She looked like someone who valued simplicity. She looked like someone no one would notice twice. The hostess smiled warmly. "Good morning, ma'am. Table for one?" "Yes, thank you." Her voice was soft, steady, and unmistakably composed. She settled into a corner booth beside the window, placing her bag carefully on the seat beside her before opening a small notebook. Instead of scrolling through a phone like everyone else, she quietly reviewed handwritten notes while waiting for her coffee. Olivia Carter approached with a friendly smile. "What can I get started for you?" "Black coffee, please. And whatever breakfast special you recommend." Olivia laughed. "That's easy. Our homemade biscuits never disappoint. I'll trust your judgment." The conversation lasted less than a minute, yet Olivia found herself strangely comforted by the woman's presence. There was something about her that made the noisy cafe seem calmer. Outside, 2 patrol cars rolled slowly into the parking lot. Officer Ethan Walker stepped out first. Tall, confident, his badge gleamed beneath the morning sun. Officer Ryan Mitchell followed, adjusting the radio clipped to his shoulder. They had just finished responding to a disturbance nearby when Ethan's attention shifted toward the cafe windows. "There," he muttered. Ryan looked over. "What?" The woman, sitting alone. Ryan shrugged. "She ordered breakfast." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Or she's waiting for someone." The 2 officers entered the cafe without urgency, but the conversations inside gradually faded as uniforms crossed the room. Olivia greeted them politely. "Morning, officers." Ethan barely acknowledged her. His attention remained fixed on the woman by the window. Vanessa Brooks looked up as the officers stopped beside her table. "Morning, officers." Identification. There was no greeting, no explanation, just a demand. Vanessa met his eyes without hostility. "May I ask why?" "You can ask questions later." "I simply wanted to understand." Ethan's expression hardened. "I said identification." The cafe grew quieter. Several customers exchanged uncertain glances. Vanessa slowly reached into her jacket and handed over her driver's license. Ethan studied it for only a few seconds before looking back at her. "You expecting us to believe this address?" "Yes. You don't seem to live there." She remained composed. "What makes you say that?" "Experience." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. But Ethan continued. "You've been sitting here writing notes instead of eating." "I was waiting for my coffee." "You've got a bag full of papers." "Yes." "You've been watching people." "I've been looking out the window." Every answer came without anger, without sarcasm, without fear. That calmness only seemed to frustrate Ethan more. He stepped closer. "Stand up." Olivia quickly intervened. "Officer, she's been here less than 10 minutes. She hasn't caused any trouble. This doesn't concern you. She hasn't broken any rules. I'll decide that." The room fell silent. Vanessa slowly stood, keeping both hands visible. "What exactly am I being detained for?" "We're investigating suspicious behavior." "What behavior?" "You'll find out." Ryan looked around a cafe. No one appeared threatened. No one had complained. Nothing suggested danger. Still, Ethan reached for his handcuffs. Several customers gasped. Olivia's eyes widened. "Officer, please." Vanessa never stepped backward. She never raised her voice. She simply extended her wrists. "If this is how you've chosen to proceed," she said. Quietly, "I won't resist." The metallic click echoed through the cafe. One cuff, then the other. The sound seemed impossibly loud. Every conversation stopped. Every phone slowly lifted. Every eye remained fixed on the woman, standing peacefully in handcuffs. Ethan clipped the chain to his belt with visible satisfaction. You've got one opportunity to cooperate. Vanessa looked directly at him. I've been cooperating since you walked in. For the first time, Ryan couldn't bring himself to meet her eyes. Something about the scene felt deeply wrong. Yet neither officer knew that those handcuffs had just been fastened around someone whose name carried authority far beyond the walls of that small cafe. And within minutes, a single phone call would begin changing every life inside the room. The cafe remained frozen in uneasy silence as Officer Ethan Walker guided Vanessa Brooks toward the entrance. Every metallic step of the handcuffs echoed louder than the conversations they had interrupted. Phone stayed raised. Coffee grew cold on forgotten tables. Vanessa never resisted. She simply walked with quiet dignity. Outside, the cool morning breeze brushed against her face as Ethan stopped beside his patrol car. You've got one phone call, he said, unlocking the rear door. Make it count. His tone carried confidence, almost amusement, as if he had already decided how the story would end. Vanessa looked at him calmly. Thank you. Ryan Mitchell shifted uncomfortably nearby. Something about the woman's composure refused to match the situation unfolding before him. Most people argued. Some cried. Others begged. She did none of those things. Olivia hurried outside. Officer, please. There has to be some misunderstanding. Ethan barely glanced at her. Go back inside, ma'am. Olivia looked at Vanessa instead. I'm so sorry. Vanessa offered only a reassuring smile. You have nothing to apologize for. Ryan handed Vanessa a department-issued cell phone, since her own belongings had already been placed inside an evidence bag. She accepted it carefully despite the handcuffs. Her fingers dialed a number from memory. Not from a contact list. Not from recent calls. From memory. The line rang only once. A calm voice answered. This is the executive operations desk. Vanessa spoke quietly. This is Major General Vanessa Brooks. There was a brief silence. Then the voice changed instantly. General Brooks, I require immediate identity verification. Location, ma'am. Vanessa slowly looked toward the cafe sign across the parking lot. Maple Grove Cafe, corner of East Hamilton and 3rd. Understood. She paused. It finally happened. Another silence. This one longer. We're on our way. The call ended. No panique. No explanation. No dramatic orders. Only 6 simple words. We're on our way. Ethan chuckled as Ryan took back the phone. That your lawyer? Vanessa met his eyes. No. A family member? No. He smirked. I figured. Ryan glanced at Ethan. Should we run her information again? I already did. And nothing special. Vanessa quietly corrected him. You only search what you expected to find. Ethan laughed. That's a clever line. She said nothing more. Inside the cafe, customers continued watching through the windows. Some whispered among themselves. Others recorded every moment. Olivia stood near the entrance, unable to shake the feeling that something extraordinary had just begun. Nearly 45 minutes passed. Traffic continued moving. Breakfast orders resumed. Even Ethan's confidence returned. I guess nobody's coming, he muttered. Ryan looked toward the distant highway. Wait. A faint sound drifted across the morning air. Not sirens. A low, rhythmic hum, almost impossible to hear at first. Then another. Then several more. Heads turned simultaneously. Far beyond the intersection, a convoy of dark SUVs appeared, moving with deliberate precision. Behind them came 2 military vehicles, their polished exteriors reflecting the morning sun. The entire parking lot seemed to hold its breath. The convoy slowed. One by one, the vehicles entered the cafe lot. Every door remained closed. Every engine continued idling. No one stepped out. Not yet. For the first time since placing the handcuffs on Vanessa Brooks, Officer Ethan Walker felt something he had not expected to feel that morning. Uncertainty. The convoy sat, motionless for several long seconds. No sirens. No flashing lights. Only the quiet rumble of powerful engines waiting beneath the morning sun. The parking lot, moments earlier filled with ordinary commuters and breakfast customers, had become eerily silent. Officer Ethan Walker instinctively rested a hand near his duty belt. "What is this?" he muttered. Ryan Mitchell didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the lead SUV. One by one, the vehicle doors opened. Men and women stepped out wearing crisp military service uniforms. Their movements were deliberate, synchronized, and disciplined. None of them looked toward the gathering crowd. Every pair of eyes focused on one person. Vanessa Brooks. The senior officer emerged last. His silver hair was neatly trimmed beneath his service cap. Multiple rows of ribbons decorated his uniform, while polished stars rested on his shoulders. Without hesitation, he walked directly past Ethan, past Ryan, past every patrol officer in the parking lot. He stopped only when he reached the woman standing quietly in handcuffs. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then the officer raised his right hand in a flawless military salute. "Good morning, General Brooks." The words landed like thunder. Every conversation stopped. Every phone remained frozen in the air. Ryan slowly turned toward Ethan. "General." Ethan frowned. "What kind of general?" The senior officer lowered his salute, but his expression remained firm. "My apologies for the delay, ma'am." Vanessa gave a small nod. "You arrived quickly. We came as fast as we could." He finally noticed the steel handcuffs around her wrists. His face changed instantly. The calm professionalism disappeared, replaced by visible disbelief. "Who authorized this?" No one answered. The question echoed across the parking lot. Captain Daniel Ross climbed from another vehicle, followed closely by several military police officers. Even they appeared stunned. Captain Ross approached Ethan. "Which officer placed Major General Brooks in restraints?" Ethan swallowed. "I did." "For what offense?" "We were investigating suspicious behavior." "What suspicious behavior?" Ethan hesitated. She refused to explain why she was here. Vanessa spoke before anyone else could. "I answered every question that was asked." Captain Ross looked toward Ryan. "Officer." Ryan lowered his eyes. "Yes, sir." "Did she resist?" "No." "Did she threaten anyone?" "No." "Did she attempt to flee?" "No, sir." Another uncomfortable silence settled over the crowd. Captain Ross slowly turned back toward Ethan. "So, let me understand this correctly." He glanced once more at the handcuffs. "You detained a cooperative citizen." "Yes." "You found no weapon." "No." "No outstanding warrant." "No." "No victim." "No." "No crime in progress." Ethan's confidence faded with every answer. The captain's voice remained calm, but each word carried unmistakable weight. And despite all of that, he paused. "You handcuffed a United States Army Major General." For the first time that morning, Ethan felt his mouth go dry. He looked toward Vanessa, searching her face for anger. He found none, only quiet patience. Around them, dozens of witnesses continued recording. Inside the cafe windows, Olivia covered her mouth in disbelief. She finally understood why the woman had remained so calm. Vanessa had never acted like someone hoping to escape trouble. She had acted like someone who already knew the truth would arrive. And now, standing in the middle of the parking lot, surrounded by military officers who had crossed the city to answer a single phone call, the truth had finally arrived with it. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits quietly for the truth to catch up. No one moved. Not the customers gathered outside the cafe. Not the officers standing beside their patrol cars. Not even the military personnel who had arrived in perfect formation. The silence belonged to Major General Vanessa Brooks. Captain Daniel Ross stepped closer, his expression growing increasingly tense as he examined the handcuffs secured around her wrists. "General Brooks," he said quietly, "may I?" She nodded once. "Please." Without another word, Captain Ross personally removed the restraints. The metallic click echoed across the parking lot. It was the same sound everyone had heard only minutes earlier, but now it carried an entirely different meaning. Freedom. Vanessa gently rubbed her wrists, where faint red marks remained. She never complained about them. She never looked at Ethan with anger. Instead, she calmly picked up the canvas bag one of the military police officers had retrieved from the patrol car. Everything inside had been returned exactly as it had been taken. Her notebook, her reading glasses, her wallet. Nothing more, nothing less. Lieutenant General James Holloway stepped beside her. "General, are you all right?" "I am. Were you injured?" "No." "Threatened?" She paused briefly before answering. "I was judged before I was questioned." Those words settled over the crowd with far greater weight than anyone expected. Captain Ross lowered his head. "I'm deeply sorry this happened." Vanessa looked toward him. "An apology matters." She then turned toward Ethan. "But accountability matters more." For the first time all morning, Ethan couldn't find anything to say. His confidence had disappeared. His shoulders seemed heavier. Everything that had felt certain only an hour ago now felt painfully fragile. Ryan remained completely silent. His eyes stayed fixed on the ground. Lieutenant General Holloway faced Captain Ross. "I've already notified the Department of Defense." Captain Ross nodded slowly. "I understand. The Army will fully cooperate. So will this department." Several military police officers quietly photographed the scene exactly as they had found it. The patrol vehicles, the parking lot, the cafe entrance, even the handcuffs lying on the hood of Ethan's cruiser. Every detail mattered. Every minute would soon become part of an official record. Olivia cautiously stepped forward from the cafe entrance. "General," Vanessa smiled warmly. "Yes, I didn't know who you were." Vanessa's smile softened. "You weren't supposed to." Olivia looked confused. Vanessa continued. "I came here for breakfast, not recognition." Those standing nearby exchanged quiet glances. The statement somehow revealed more about her character than any military title ever could. She had never introduced herself as a general. She had never demanded special treatment. She had never threatened anyone with authority. She had simply expected to be treated with ordinary human dignity. Captain Ross finally turned toward Ethan and Ryan. "Effective immediately, both of you are relieved of field duty pending an internal affairs investigation." Neither officer argued. Neither protested. Ryan quietly removed his patrol gloves. Ethan slowly unclipped his body camera. The weight of reality had finally reached him. Vanessa watched in silence. There was no satisfaction in her expression. No triumph, only disappointment. As the military convoy prepared to leave, Lieutenant General Holloway opened the rear door of the lead SUV. Before stepping inside, Vanessa looked once more at the small cafe where the morning had begun. She realized this story was no longer about a general. It was about a decision, one assumption, one abuse of authority, and the undeniable truth that every camera, every witness, and every choice made that morning would soon tell exactly the same story. Truth has a strange habit of leaving fingerprints on every lie. By noon, the quiet parking lot outside Maple Grove Cafe had become an active investigation scene. The military convoy was gone. Yellow evidence markers now stood where patrol cars had been parked only hours earlier. Detectives from Internal Affairs arrived carrying cameras, notebooks, and sealed evidence cases. Every movement was methodical. Every question had a purpose. Captain Daniel Ross watched silently as the investigation officially began. "There will be no shortcuts," he said. "No assumptions. Only facts." Officer Ethan Walker and Officer Ryan Mitchell were separated immediately. Standard procedure. Neither officer was permitted to discuss the incident with the other. Inside the cafe, investigators requested access to every surveillance camera. Olivia Carter unlocked the office without hesitation. "I've already saved the footage," she explained. "I didn't want anything to disappear." The lead investigator nodded appreciatively. "Good thinking." Multiple camera angles began playing across several monitors. The front entrance, the dining area, the counter, the booth beside the window. Minute after minute, the recordings revealed exactly what dozens of witnesses had already described. Major General Vanessa Brooks entered alone. She greeted the hostess politely. She ordered breakfast. She waited quietly. She never approached another customer. She never raised her voice. She never caused a disturbance. Then the officers entered. The investigators replayed the interaction repeatedly. Officer Ethan demanded identification without explanation. Vanessa asked a simple question. "May I ask why?" The footage showed no aggression. No threatening movement. No attempt to flee. Only calm cooperation. Next came the body camera recordings. The sound was unmistakably clear. Every instruction, every response, every pause. The investigators listened carefully as Ethan described Vanessa's behavior as suspicious. One investigator finally pressed pause. What specific crime did he articulate? No one answered, because there wasn't one. Ryan's body camera told an entirely different story. His breathing grew noticeably heavier as the encounter continued. Several times, his camera captured him glancing toward Ethan, as though silently questioning each decision being made. He never voiced those concerns aloud, but the camera preserved every uncertain expression. Outside, additional witnesses were interviewed one by one. A retired school principal, a delivery driver, a college student studying before class. Their statements differed in small details, yet every one of them agreed on the most important facts. The woman remained respectful. The officers escalated the situation. The handcuffs came without resistance. Back at police headquarters, dispatch recordings were also reviewed. Investigators discovered that no emergency call had originated from the cafe. No customer complaint. No report of theft. No report of violence. Nothing requiring immediate detention. Captain Ross slowly removed his reading glasses. The evidence is becoming very clear. The lead internal affairs investigator nodded. We're no longer asking what happened. We're determining why it happened. The room fell silent. That question carried far greater weight. Because policies could explain procedure. Evidence could explain actions. But neither could explain assumptions. Across town, Vanessa Brooks sat quietly inside her office at the military installation. She had already submitted her official statement. She declined every media interview. She declined every request for public comment. When asked whether she wished to add anything further, she answered with only one sentence. I want the facts to speak louder than my rank. As evening settled over the city, investigators continued organizing witness statements, camera footage, dispatch logs, and body camera recordings into a single timeline. Piece by piece, every image supported the next. Every recording confirmed the last. The truth was no longer hidden behind opinions or assumptions. It had been preserved by cameras, carried by witnesses, and documented in every decision made that morning. And by sunrise, that truth would reach far beyond one cafe, one patrol car, or one police department. The hardest sentence to hear is not the one delivered by a judge, is the one spoken by your own conscience. Less than 24 hours after the incident at Maple Grove Cafe, the police department's briefing room felt heavier than it ever had before. No reporters had been invited. No cameras from the local news were present. Only command staff, internal affairs investigators, department attorneys, and the two officers at the center of the investigation occupied the room. Officer Ethan Walker sat motionless at the far end of the conference table. His badge had already been surrendered. His service weapon rested inside a sealed evidence locker. For the first time in 12 years, he wore no symbol of authority. Across from him sat Ryan Mitchell. He looked exhausted. Sleep had clearly avoided him. The lead internal affairs investigator connected a laptop to the large screen at the front of the room. We will review the complete timeline. The first video appeared. Vanessa Brooks entering the cafe. Then another. Her ordering breakfast. Another. The first contact with the officers. Every recording matched perfectly. No contradiction. No missing moments. No hidden angle capable of changing the story. The investigator paused the footage just before Ethan demanded identification. Officer Walker. Ethan slowly raised his eyes. What specific facts established reasonable suspicion before this point? Silence. The investigator waited. Finally, Ethan answered quietly. I believe something wasn't right. The investigator nodded once. Belief. He wrote the word on a whiteboard. What objective behavior supported that belief? Another pause. Longer this time. His voice faded. There wasn't an answer. The investigator circled the word. Belief without articulable facts is not evidence. No one in the room disagreed. The review continued. Body camera footage filled the screen once more. Vanessa remained calm, respectful. cooperative. Every response reflected patience instead of hostility. Then came the moment everyone already knew by heart. The handcuffs. Click, click. The investigator stopped the video. Officer Mitchell. Ryan straightened. Did you observe any physical resistance? No. Any verbal threat? No. Any attempt to escape? No, sir. Then why didn't you intervene? Ryan looked down at his folded hands. I should have. The words barely rose above a whisper. I knew something felt wrong. The room remained silent. Sometimes accountability arrived not through accusation, but through honesty. Meanwhile, across town, Major General Vanessa Brooks was attending a leadership seminar at the military base exactly as originally scheduled. She never mentioned the incident. She focused entirely on the young officers seated before her. The greatest test of leadership, she told them, is how you treat someone who cannot benefit your career. No one in the audience realized she had lived those words only hours earlier. Back inside police headquarters, the department attorney closed the final evidence folder. The investigation is no longer centered on one encounter. He looked around the room. It is examining whether assumptions replaced professional judgment. The police chief slowly stood. His expression carried disappointment more than anger. When the public gives us authority, he said, they also expect restraint. He looked directly at Ethan. Authority without discipline becomes abuse. No one spoke after that. The silence itself felt like a verdict still waiting to be written. Outside the headquarters, the evening sun dipped below the horizon. Tomorrow, formal disciplinary decisions would begin. But inside that room, something far more important had already happened. The badge had stopped protecting bad decisions, and the truth no longer needed anyone's permission to be believed. Justice is complete not when someone falls, but when everyone learns why they fell. 3 days after the incident at Maple Grove Cafe, the department auditorium filled long before the scheduled briefing. Uniformed officers occupied every row. Detectives stood along the walls. Supervisors remained unusually quiet. No one had been ordered to attend, yet almost everyone came. They knew this meeting would become part of the department's history. Police Chief Rebecca Collins walked slowly to the podium. She carried no prepared speech. Only a thin investigation file rested in her hands. She looked across the room before speaking. This profession survives on public trust. Her voice was calm. When that trust is damaged, silence is not leadership. Behind her, a screen displayed a single sentence. Final Internal Affairs findings. The room became completely still. The investigation concludes, she continued, that Major General Vanessa Brooks committed no criminal offense. A quiet murmur swept through the audience. The detention lacked sufficient legal justification. She turned another page. The use of restraints was determined to be unnecessary under the circumstances. No one looked surprised. Everyone had already seen the evidence. But hearing the official findings carried a different weight. Chief Collins looked toward the front row. Officer Ethan Walker sat in civilian clothing. His eyes remained fixed on the floor. Officer Walker. He slowly stood. The chief spoke without anger. You served this department for many years. A brief pause followed. But experience cannot replace judgment. Another page turned. Your employment with this department is terminated, effective immediately. The words echoed through the auditorium. Ethan closed his eyes for a brief moment. He did not argue. He did not protest. He simply nodded once. Perhaps because every camera, every witness, and every recording had already spoken long before this meeting began. Chief Collins then faced Ryan Mitchell. Officer Mitchell. Ryan stood. The investigation found no evidence that you initiated the detention. He swallowed quietly. However, officers have a duty to intervene when professional standards are being violated. Ryan nodded. I understand. You will receive disciplinary action, mandatory constitutional policing training, and remain under supervisory review. Yes, Chief. His answer came without hesitation. When the formal announcements ended, many believed the meeting was over. It wasn't. Chief Collins stepped away from the podium. Our final guest has accepted an invitation. The rear doors opened. Every officer turned. Major General Vanessa Brooks entered without military escort. No medidas. No ceremonial uniform. Only the same simple navy blue suit she had worn inside the cafe. The room rose to its feet. Not because anyone ordered them to. Because respect had finally replaced assumption. Vanessa walked to the podium. She looked across hundreds of faces. I did not come here to celebrate someone's punishment. The room remained silent. I came because every profession entrusted with authority faces the same temptation. She paused. To believe power belongs to us. She gently shook her head. It doesn't. It belongs to the people we are sworn to serve. Many officers lowered their eyes. Some quietly wiped away tears. Vanessa offered one final thought before stepping away from the microphone. The strongest uniform is never the one that carries the highest rank. She smiled softly. It is the one worn by someone who chooses fairness, even when no one is watching. For several long seconds, no one applauded. The silence itself became the loudest expression of respect, because everyone in that room understood that justice had not ended with discipline. It had begun with a lesson that would outlast every badge in the building. A lesson becomes history only when someone chooses to live differently because of it. The story spread far beyond Maple Grove, far beyond the police department. Within a week, law enforcement academies, military leadership programs, and community organizations were requesting permission to study the case. Not because it involved a major general, but because it exposed how quickly assumptions could replace judgment. Captain Daniel Ross stood inside the department's training center, watching a room filled with newly recruited officers. The large screen displayed no photographs, no names, only one question. What did the officers know before they made their decision? The recruits studied the words in silence. One young officer finally raised her hand. They knew almost nothing. Ross nodded. Exactly. He walked slowly across the room. Most professional failures don't begin with bad intentions. They begin with incomplete information. He allowed the sentence to settle, and someone convincing themselves that incomplete information is enough. The classroom remained quiet. No one reached for a notebook. Every eye stayed on the instructor, because this lesson demanded reflection more than memorization. Across town, Maple Grove Cafe had quietly returned to normal. Customers laughed over breakfast. Coffee machines hummed. Morning sunlight spilled across the same windows where fear had once stood. Olivia Carter continued working behind the counter. One afternoon, Vanessa Brooks walked through the front door again. No convoy followed her. No security detail waited outside. She smiled as though she had never left. Olivia immediately recognized her. It's good to see you again. It's good to be back, Vanessa replied warmly. Olivia hesitated before asking the question she had carried for days. Weren't you nervous about coming back here? Vanessa looked around the cafe. The building didn't make that decision. The people inside it did. Olivia smiled quietly. I never thought about it that way. Vanessa ordered the exact same breakfast she had ordered the week before. She sat at the very same booth beside the window. Only this time, no one stared. Several customers recognized her from news reports. A few offered respectful smiles. One elderly veteran approached her table. He removed his cap. I just wanted to thank you. Vanessa looked surprised. For what? For showing people that dignity doesn't have to shout. She stood and shook his hand. Thank you for your service. No, the veteran replied gently. Thank you for reminding us what service really means. Later that afternoon, Captain Ross entered the cafe. He wasn't wearing his patrol uniform, only a simple business suit. He approached Vanessa's table. May I sit down? Of course. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ross quietly said, Our department has added this case to every future constitutional policing course. Vanessa smiled. Then something good has already come from it. Ross nodded. It already has. Outside the cafe, people walked past without realizing they were passing the place where one ordinary morning had permanently changed countless future decisions. No monument marked the sidewalk. No plaque hung on the wall. Only invisible lessons remained. Lessons carried by every officer who would one day pause before making an assumption. Every leader who would remember that authority begins with humility. and every ordinary citizen who understood that true dignity never depends on rank, recognition, or the uniform someone happens to wear. He wore a badge, believing it made him powerful. She carried the truth, and it changed everyone who witnessed it. Autumn arrived quietly. The trees surrounding Fort Hamilton glowed in shades of gold and crimson, while a cool morning breeze swept across the parade ground. Hundreds of soldiers stood in perfect formation. Families gathered behind the ceremonial barriers. Veterans sat proudly in the front row. It was Armed Forces Appreciation Day. Major General Vanessa Brooks walked toward the reviewing platform with the same calm confidence she had carried into Maple Grove Cafe months earlier. Her dress uniform reflected the morning sunlight. Every ribbon represented years of service. Every medal had been earned long before the world ever learned her name. As the military band finished playing, Lieutenant General James Holloway stepped to the microphone. Today we honor courage. He paused. But courage is not measured only on a battlefield. The audience listened carefully. Sometimes courage is choosing dignity when humiliation would be easier. Without mentioning the incident directly, everyone understood. Among the invited guests sat Captain Daniel Ross. Beside him were several young police recruits who had recently completed the department's new constitutional policing program. They had specifically requested to attend, not to meet a famous general, but to meet the woman whose restraint had changed the way they understood authority. When the ceremony concluded, visitors were invited to greet the service members. One by one, veterans shook Vanessa's hand. Children asked for photographs. Military families thanked her for her leadership. Then one young police recruit approached. He stood nervously before her. General Brooks. Yes, I wasn't at the cafe. I know, but your story became part of my academy training. Vanessa smiled gently. And what did you learn? The young officer thought carefully before answering. I learned that every person deserves an explanation before they deserve suspicion. For the first time that morning, Vanessa's smile grew wider. Then the lesson was worth it. Nearby, Captain Ross watched the exchange quietly. He realized the greatest outcome of that painful morning had never been an investigation. It had never been discipline. It had never even been accountability. It had been transformation. One conversation, one generation, one decision at a time. As the crowd slowly dispersed, a military honor guard prepared to escort the general to her vehicle. The commanding sergeant called the formation to attention. Present, arms. Dozens of soldiers raised their rifles in perfect unison. At the same moment, every uniformed police officer attending the ceremony instinctively raised a respectful salute. No command had been given to them. Respect required none. Vanessa returned the salute with quiet grace. For several long seconds, soldiers and police officers stood united beneath the same morning sky. Not divided by rank, not separated by uniforms, only connected by a shared promise to serve with honor. As she entered her vehicle, she glanced once toward the horizon. The memory of handcuffs had faded. The lesson they carried never would. Because justice had never been about proving that one woman held a higher rank than two officers. It had been about proving that no badge, no title, and no uniform is ever greater than the dignity of another human being. And perhaps that was the quiet truth waiting behind every act of real courage. The strongest authority is not the power to command. It is the wisdom to treat every stranger as if their story matters. Because one day, it just might change your own.